All right, we'll lift item 2.
Okay, current vote is 8-0. Absent members Berryhill. Aye. Berryhill, aye. Galgiani. Hill. It's 9-0.
Okay. Yes, let's lift item 1 for the rules, please.
Current vote is 6-0. Absent members Berryhill. Aye. Berryhill, aye. Galgiani. Hernandez. Hill. Lara. That's 7-0. Sorry.
All right. All right, so we're going to move into our hearing, confronting shortfalls in Indian gaming funds, the Special Distribution Fund, and the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. This morning's informational hearing is intended to give the members of this committee, the majority of who are new to GO, a better grasp of an important matter that has been front and center for some time. Namely the funding shortfalls in the Special Distribution Fund and the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. When the Special Distribution Fund was established with the tribal compacts in 1999, it was designed in part to offset the impacts of tribal casinos on local government services such as public safety, infrastructure, medical emergency care, environmental, and problem gaming. And it has certainly done that through numerous strong partnerships that have been developed between tribes and local government entities. The Revenue Sharing Trust Fund was also created as part of the 1999 compacts, and it was designed to assist non-gaming tribes and limited gaming tribes. These tribes generally received $1.1 million annually from the Sharing Trust Fund. Even though compact revisions over the past few years have increased tribal payments into these two funds, the expected revenue has not materialized, resulting in a structural imbalance. I'm hopeful that our witnesses today will provide us with the necessary information to address this challenge so that we proceed with any short-term or long-term solutions, including any necessary legislative action. I would like to invite our first panel to the podium, but before Ms. Lee from the Analyst's Office begin, I'd like to ask my colleagues and Vice Chair Senator Berryhill if they have any opening comments. Our first panel is invited to the podium.
No, I'm good.
All right. Any Senator Vidak, any comments? All right, Ms. Lee, thank you for being here. You have a guest with you today?
Yes, Drew Soderberg from the Legislative Analyst's Office is also sitting next to me.
Very good. Thank you. You may begin.
Great. So before you, we prepared a handout. Staff had asked us to provide an overview of the tribal gaming funds, and I believe you guys all have copies of it. So if you turn to page 1 of your handout, we first provide an overview of gaming in California. The legislature has ratified tribal state gaming compacts with 73 of California's 110 federally recognized tribes. Of these, 58 tribes currently operate 60 casinos. The tribal state compacts generally require that tribes make payments into various state accounts under certain conditions. The payment requirements differ across the tribes and depend on various factors, such as the number of slot machines that are operated and or the average net win of the slot machines. Currently, 46 tribes make payments into 3 state accounts. The Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, or the RSTF, received payments from 37 tribes. The Special Distribution Fund, or SDF, received payments from 26 tribes, and the General Fund receives payments from 11 tribes. So over the next few pages of the handout, we're going to dive a little bit more in depth into each of these funds. On page 2 of the handout, we have the RSTF. As mentioned by the chair, the funds deposited into the RSTF are distributed to certain federally recognized tribes that either do not operate casinos or operate less than 350 slot machines. The tribes generally each receive $1.1 million annually. In 2014-15, 73 tribes are estimated to be eligible to receive such payments. As shown in the figure before you on this page, annual RSTF expenditures have routinely exceeded revenues since 2001, the year after the fund was first created. In recent years, this shortfall has averaged approximately $30 million. State law requires that these shortfalls be addressed by transferring sufficient funds from the SDF annually to ensure that each eligible tribe receives their full payment. Turning to pages 3 and 4 of your handout, we take a closer look at the SDF. So funds deposited into the SDF are prioritized for the use to first address shortfalls in the RSTF, then to address problem gaming costs, then to address regulatory costs, and finally to provide grants to local governments impacted by tribal casinos. Additionally, SDF funds may be used for other gambling purposes that are specified in law. In 2006, 5 tribes negotiated amendments to their existing tribal state compacts. The amended compacts went into effect towards the end of 2007-08 and required payments to the general fund instead of the SDF. Upon full implementation of the amended compacts in 2008-09, the majority of SDF revenues were shifted to the general fund. As you can see in the figure before you on page 3 of the handout, the annual expenditures have exceeded revenues by approximately $30 million since 2008-09. This imbalance has been addressed by using prior year fund balance from the SDF, but that source is expected to be exhausted in 2014-15. Turning to page 5 of the handout, we then have the general fund. In 2014-15, the general fund is estimated to receive $330 million in revenue from the tribes. Currently, tribal state compacts for 3 tribes require that up to $124.2 million of their general fund payments be available annually for redirection if the RSTF shortfalls. Specifically, the compacts require the transfer of sufficient funds that each eligible tribe receives their full payment. Additionally, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal decided in the Rincon case that the state could no longer require tribes to make payments to the general fund. While the compacts requiring these types of payments still stand, these tribes will likely no longer make such payments when their compacts are renegotiated. Turning to page 6 of the handout, the legislature took some action in 2014-15, and this page really summarizes those actions. So first, similar to prior years, the 2014-15 budget assumes that the SDF will transfer funds to address the annual RSTF shortfall. However, because of the depletion of the SDF fund balance, it is projected that the SDF will have insufficient funds to fully address the RSTF shortfall, as well as to maintain current levels of regulatory and problem gaming costs. So to ensure that full RSTF payments will be made, the 2014-15 budget authorizes the redirection of the tribal general fund payments. We estimate that the redirection will be approximately $7 million in 2014-15, and that a similar amount will likely be needed in 2015-16. Additionally, to better understand how the SDF expenditures are used, the legislature approved supplemental reporting language, requiring that the California Gambling Control Commission submit a report that discusses how the various state agencies that received SDF revenues used their allocations since 2003. Additionally, the report is also to discuss how the Horse Racing Board and the California Lottery fund problem gaming, regulatory, and local mitigation activities. The report is expected to be submitted to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee by April 1st. Looking towards the future, the last 2 pages of our handout take a look at the short-term and long-term issues for legislative consideration. On page 7 of the handout, we first have the short-term considerations. First, due to the ongoing mismatch between revenues and expenditures in both the RSTF and the SDF, we estimate that the annual general fund transfers to the RSTF to make up for the shortfall will continue to be needed in the short run to maintain current levels of regulatory and problem gaming services. Second, if the legislature would like to reduce the amount that is transferred from the general fund, it has very limited options. Specifically, the legislature would need to reduce SDF expenditures on either problem gambling or regulation, which would likely impact both the quality and the level of service that's provided. Finally, in recent years, there have been requests for additional spending from the SDF. Any additional expenditures from the SDF, such as for grants for local mitigation, would require a greater transfer from the general fund. Turning to the final page of your handout, page 8, we have the long-term issues for legislative consideration. So first, the structural imbalance and the need for general fund transfer may decrease over time. As we mentioned with the Rincon decision, any new compacts or amendments of existing compacts may no longer require general fund contributions. Instead, they're likely to make increased payments to the RSTF and the SDF. Depending on the terms of each negotiated compact, this could eliminate the structural balance and also eliminate the need for the general fund transfers. However, we would note that it could take years before these changes would go into effect. Second, the state may want to consider whether to change the payment structure that is currently required in the tribal state compacts to better reflect the state's priorities in regulation, funding regulation, problem gaming, et cetera. And so before you, we have a couple examples, and this is by no means the only options. But for example, the legislature could increase payments to the RSTF to more closely align the fund's revenues and expenditures. The state could no longer support state gaming regulatory costs and problem gaming from the SDF. Instead, the state could support these programs by billing gaming tribes to ensure that these costs are addressed regardless of the fund condition of the RSTF or the SDF. Finally, the state could eliminate expenditures from local mitigation from the SDF. Instead, the state could require that tribes fully address all local costs through memorandums of understandings with any impacted local governments. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Any questions from the senators? Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. While we're preparing to call up the next witness, Tina Littleton, Executive Director of California Gaming Control Commission, and Anna Carr, Deputy Director, please come forward. But before we do that, why don't we open the roll on the 3 items so that Senator Hill will have a chance to place his vote. Very well. Please open the roll.
Item number 1 is our committee rules. It's currently 7-0. Absent members Galgiani, Hernandez, Hill, aye, Lara. That's 8-0. Item number 2 was SB 133 McGuire. Current vote is 9-0. Absent members Galgiani, Hill. Aye. Hill, aye. That passes 10-0. Item number 3 is SJR 4 by Senator Lara. Current vote is 9-0. Absent members Galgiani, Hill. Aye. Hill, aye. That has the pleasure.
All right. All right, and we also have Madeline McLean with the Department of Finance present as well. All right, thank you for being here. You may begin. We'll start with Madeline.
Madeline McLean, Department of Finance. The administration generally concurs with the LAO's assessment of the tribal gaming funds. We recognize the need to restructure and reevaluate the Indian Gaming Special Distribution Fund and the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund to ensure the future solvency of these funds. As we are currently in negotiations with several tribes to amend their gaming compacts, we cannot comment on a specific strategy at this time. However, again, the future health of these funds is taken into consideration as part of our negotiations.
Okay, very good. Any questions? All right, you may begin. Thank you for being here, Madeline.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Tina Littleton, with the Executive Director of the California Gambling Control Commission, and with me I have Anna Carr, my Deputy Director over the Legislation and Regulatory Affairs. Thank you for the invitation to speak before you today. I'd like to begin with an overview of the Commission's roles and responsibilities. The Commission was created as a full-time commission in 1998 through the enactment of the Gambling Control Act and did not become operative until August 29, 2000. The Commission, pursuant to the compacts, the Gambling Control Act, and the Governor's executive orders, has various trustee, regulatory, and administrative responsibilities related to tribal gaming and the distribution of revenues to eligible tribes. The Commission's primary responsibilities related to tribal gaming include making suitability recommendations for tribal key employees, vendors, and financial sources. We also serve as the trustee for the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, and we serve as the administrator of the Special Distribution Fund. We conduct license draws as provided in the 1999 compacts. We register gaming manufacturers and distributors, and we also provide consultation to the state controllers on the methodology used to allocate the Special Distribution Fund grant appropriations to county accounts for grants to local jurisdictions. We provide consultation to Department of Finance to calculate the total revenue in the Special Distribution Fund each year, and we also develop regulations related to the compacts in coordinations with the Tribal State Association. The Commission also acts as the regulatory body over gambling establishment known as card rooms, and we also act as the regulatory body over third-party providers of proposition player services. Our primary responsibilities related to the card room industry include making determinations of suitability for the issuance of licenses, registrations, permits to owners, supervisors, players, and key employees. We issue work permits to card room employees. We develop and implement regulations pursuant to the Gambling Control Act. We provide adjudication on recommendations concerning license denials, revocations, or disciplinary actions, and we also assess and act upon certain restricted transactions, including ownership changes and lending agreements. The Governor's Reorganization Plan number 2 of 2012, known as GRP2, became operative on July 1, 2013. GRP2 consolidated the support, auditing, and compliance functions of the commissions and transferred these duties to the Department of Justice. Prior to GRP2, the commission received and processed all applications and associated fees, as well as conducted various tribal reviews of quarterly payments pursuant to the compacts, and we also tested gaming devices. The commission has retained jurisdiction over licensing, policies, regulations, criteria, and standards pertaining to gaming. We have 35 positions and approximately a budget of $6.6 million for state operations. As Ms. Lee indicated, we are responsible for preparing the supplemental report of the 2014-15 budget package to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. The Commission is preparing this report in coordination with the various state agencies that receive special distribution funds. This report will focus on the special distribution fund expenditures received to support problem gambling, regulatory costs, and local mitigation grants between fiscal years 2003 and 4 through fiscal years 14-15. This report will also summarize the services and activities associated with these funds. It will address how problem gambling regulation and the local mitigation payments and activities are funded by the Horse Racing Board, the State Lottery, and the card rooms. This report will also address how the Commission determines a tribe's pro rata share of state costs. The Commission is also required to prepare an annual report on the shortfalls in the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. Each year, by May revise, the Commission is required to determine the anticipated shortfalls in payments to the RSTF for the upcoming fiscal year. The Commission is required to provide the Budget Committee with an estimate of the amount to be transferred from the Special Distribution Fund to address these shortfalls. In general, this estimate is based on the difference between the anticipated amount of payments that will be made to eligible RSTF tribes and the anticipated amount of payments that will be received from the tribes that contribute to the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. The last topic that I would like to cover includes the recent compact requirements for the state share of regulatory costs. Under the recent compacts and the RINCON secretarial procedures, tribes are required to pay a share of costs to reimburse the state's regulatory costs associated with tribal gaming. These pro rata payments are required to be made to the Special Distribution Fund. The Commission follows the compact requirements to ensure the proper allocation of these regulatory costs. Thank you, and I will respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. And I would assume that we did, when I stepped out, did we go to Anna yet?
No.
Okay, Anna, you're up next. Thank you.
Anna Carr, Anna Carr with the commission, available for questions.
Very good. Questions from senators?
Just a kind of a comment. Just on the natural here, as we renegotiate these contracts, as long we can fix this thing, it's just going to take a few years, right?
That is correct. As the governor renegotiates these compacts, as that goes through that process and then through the legislative process, once they are ratified, then that's when we will start receiving the payments according to the compact
Right,
requirements.
so there's not a lot of controversy here, is there? Is there anybody pushing back on this thing? There isn't, is there?
Since those, we're not involved, the commission does not get involved in negotiating compacts, that's through the governor's office.
Okay, all right, thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll call up Nathan Duval from the Bureau of Gaming Control. Thank you for being with us today. You may begin.
Good morning, Chairman Hall and members of the committee. Excuse me. My name is Nathan Duval, and I am the Assistant Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Gambling Control's Compliance and Enforcement Section, more commonly referred to CS. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today about the Bureau of Gambling Control's investigative and auditing responsibilities as a result of funding received by way of the Special Distribution Fund. The Department of Justice, pursuant to tribal state gaming compacts and the Gambling Control Act, serves in a criminal investigative and enforcement capacity as part of its responsibilities as the state gaming agency. The Bureau's primary responsibilities related to tribal gaming include, but are not limited to, the following: conducting gaming-related investigations, conducting criminal investigations occurring at the casinos, conducting other gaming-related investigations that may potentially violate the tribe's compacted right to offer Class III gaming, such as internet cafes, illegal slot machines, and illegal home games, conducting routine compact compliance inspections, conducting audits pursuant to the compact terms, conducting findings of suitability investigations for tribal key employees, financial sources, and vendors, preparing reports of findings according to administrative, audits, and inspection activities. To provide more specificity, examples of the Bureau of Gambling Control's investigating and audits responsibilities include conducting gaming-related investigations involving money laundering, bookmaking, loan sharking, and cheating scams, conducting other criminal investigations occurring in casinos such as robberies, burglaries, narcotic sales, embezzlement, credit card fraud, check fraud, human trafficking, and others. Investigating and enforcing California Penal Code and U.S. Government Code violations regarding illegal gambling, such as internet cafes with illegal gaming devices and slot machines, and illegal slot machines being operated in liquor stores, smoke shops, and other locations, all of which encroach upon the tribe's compacted right to offer Class III gaming negotiated within the tribal gaming compacts. Investigating illegal home games that create financial hardships for licensed California card rooms and are also in direct conflict with the tribe's compacted right to offer Class III gaming. Conducting routine compact compliance inspections and follow-up. Conducting findings of suitability investigations of tribal key employees applicants, tribal vendor applicants, and gaming resource suppliers applicants. Preparing findings and recommendations to the California Gambling Control Commission, which is its primary basis for determining applicant suitability based on criteria as defined in the Act and compacts. Conducting financial and eligibility audits pursuant to the terms of the compacts to ensure accurate contributions are being made to specified funds. Preparing audit findings and presenting results to the California Gambling Control Commission as necessary. Providing administrative support to the Bureau in the following areas of personnel services, budgets, purchasing, legislation, facilities coordination, contracts, and trading coordination. Conducting field inspections related to technical standards and protocols for electronic gaming devices, and participating with the Tribal State Gaming Regulatory Association and the Commission in the development of regulations relating to the compacts. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today, and I welcome any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. All right. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Terry, come on up. Thank you, Chairwoman, for being here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Hall, members of the committee. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak before you today on this very important matter. My name is Sherry Treppa. I'm the chairperson of Habematol Pomo of Upper Lake.
Sorry, I thought I was calling up Terry Sue from no, so I wasn't mispronouncing your name. I missed that line. So you're next, and then Terry will come after you, just for the record, Madam Chairperson.
Great.
So go right ahead.
Thank you. My apologies. Am I out of order?
No, I'm out of order.
Okay, great.
You may begin.
Thank you. I represent a very small tribe in Northern California. We have a little over 240 members. We are one of 73 recipient tribes of the RSTF. I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the reason I suppose that I'm up here as a tribal leader, although I can articulate many of the things that have come before us and the compacts that occurred in 2004, 2006, et cetera, that brought us to this position. But I think it's important to make a notation on why 73 tribes need and depend upon the $1.1 million that they are afforded through the RSTF. I'll do that by giving you a little background on my tribe, and I'll try to be as succinct and quick as possible. But tribes like mine still depend on those revenues. My tribe came from Northern California, a small area near Clear Lake from time immemorial. Notably, in 1856, our tribe was subject to a cavalry action upon our people that exterminated several of our men, women, and children, not only ours, but other tribes in the area. We were relegated to a small piece of land in the early 1900s, were able to amass through a piecemeal assimilation of parcels of land, a little over 560 acres. In 1956, the U.S. Congress passed California Rancheria Act, which effectively terminated our federal status. We lost control of our lands, and we were not alone in that action. Several other tribes in California are in the same position. We survived hardships for decades. We're able to reorganize. We sued the federal government in 1973 and won our lawsuit in the 1980s, only to be left landless, although we were able to regain our federal status. Like many other tribes in California, we looked at gaming as an opportunity to have some kind of economic development. We managed to get a partner to fund our efforts. It was a very, very, very challenging venture, not to mention a very expensive one, to put land into trust for gaming. We were able to get our casino open in 2012, but because of the challenges with 2 gaming compacts, we were in debt $30 million. The tribe does not expect to see any revenues from our casino in the near future. The $1.1 million is the cornerstone to the ability of our tribe and many other tribes in California to continue to operate their tribal government. We've been able to overcome some of the obstacles and have managed to put a couple other small businesses in place, but I must stand here or sit here and let you know that it is of the utmost importance that that 1.1 continues to be flown to those tribes. Although we are still very proud of the casino in that it provides a beautiful venue for entertainment and food and badly needed jobs to the community, it does not and will not provide revenues to the tribe for the foreseeable future. Moreover, the RSTF is critically important to our and other recipient tribes' general welfare in that it is the cornerstone in supporting fundamental tribal governance and essential services. Like all the other recipient tribes, we depend on it. The intent of the Special Distribution Fund is exemplified by the positive impacts seen in Lake County and other counties by augmenting various county projects and services for the entire community. The tribe enjoys a positive government-to-government relationship with the County of Lake, which was undoubtedly aided by the existence of the SDF and in which was instrumental in the negotiation of our compact. Since Lake County is a recipient of those monies from the SDF, I felt that I must speak up on their behalf as well. We do provide some MOU monies to them, but they really depend upon additional revenues for law enforcement. Underfunding or depletion of either or both of the Indian gaming funds will detrimentally impact tribes and local jurisdictions throughout the state. That is a fact. One factor, and quite frankly, the sole aggravating factor that has undoubtedly exacerbated the current funding levels of the RSTF and SDF is a negative impact created by those compacts that were negotiated with prior administration, wherein contributions to the RSTF were capped and contributions to the SDF were relieved in exchange for contributions to the state's general fund. The current annual general fund contribution by tribes with 2004 and 06 compacts total upwards of $300 million to the general fund, which is well documented and summarized in March 2014 Legislative Analyst's Office report on shortfalls in Indian gaming funds. That said, 3 of the 2006 compacts provide specific enumerated provisions for the backfilling of RSTF shortfalls by the general fund with respect to the $124 million in general fund contributions made by those particular tribes. In 2014, the state's regulatory allocations were approximately $26 million, which was paid out of the SDF and accounted for in various state agency budget allocations. The RSTF shortfall in 2014 was approximately $28 million, or $30 million, which was mentioned earlier, which was backfilled by the SDF. Thus, the current draw on RSTF and SDF can arguably be more than supported through appropriate general fund backfilling with available 2006 compact contributions for the duration of those compacts. To do otherwise will allow the RSTF and STF to virtually die on the vine while the general fund continues to receive superfluous funding. Unfortunately, 2004 and 2006 compacts are in place and continue to be honored by the parties of those agreements, despite the clear finding in the recent RINCON decision that general fund contributions are inconsistent with the provisions of IGRA and are tantamount to an illegal tax. The current administration's effort to address the solvency of the RSTF and SDF in new compacts is laudable, but insufficient and in of itself in the short term, give the 2004 and 2006 compacts as described previously. Consistent with the terms of the 04 and 06 compacts, sufficient backfilling of the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund and SDF are critically necessary to ensure the solvency of these funds and in order to fulfill the intent of these funds consistent with IGRA and the various compacts in the state. Similar to the legislative solution that was created in 2005 with the passage of AB 1750, which amended section 12012.90 of the Government Code to ensure timely and full revenue sharing trust fund distributions were made eligible to tribes within 45 days of the end of each quarter and provided for estimated revenue sharing trust fund backfill from the SDF based on CGC estimates and budget projections. Here, a legislative fix that ensures RSTF shortfalls are properly estimated by the CGCC and backfilled by eligible gaming fund, general fund gaming revenue contributions is the next logical step to ensure long-term solvency of the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, consistent with Prop 1A and 06 compacts, so long as those compacts deliver in excess of $120 million to the general fund. The problem was created by the past administration's compacting practices, and the logical resolution now lays in the hands of the legislature. And it's time to do the right thing and ensure the solvency of the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund and SDF for the tribes and the state. I think having a legislative fix makes a lot of sense. So we'd be happy to help in any effort that may come forth from this body or any individual. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the senators? Everybody's good to go? All right. Thank you for your testimony. Terry Sue? All right. You don't do anything in May? No. Make sure I mention this. And it's my understanding that March is the National Problem Gambling Month, Awareness Month, correct?
It is. I was going to mention that.
See, I thought I'd steal your...
Perfect timing
I thought
for
I'd
this.
steal your thunder.
That's okay.